What historical event 100% reads like a time traveler went back in time to alter history? Franz Ferdinand's assassination. It was so much happenstance, shenanigans, and tomfoolery that it's like a special achievement in a hitman game. A Belgian businessman was instrumental to the Manhattan Project's success. Realizing uranium's importance, he shipped 1,200 tons of it to Staten Island. When Lieutenant Colonel Nichols contacted him, he simply responded, "You can have the ore now. It is in New York. I was waiting for your visit." Da Vinci. The madman designed a tank in the 1500s. Fidel Castro's assassination attempts being dodged is so unrealistic. Really. He dodged about 600. That it feels like a time traveler went back and foiled every single one of them. The Russian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky was sentenced to death by firing squad, and just as they were preparing the groups to be shot, a messenger came with a letter from the Tsar, forgiving them, and the sentence was changed to prison labor. He later went on to write some of the most influential novels of all time. Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived both the bombings at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Reads like a satirical time traveler story where the protagonist screws up his dates. Not really an event, but more of a couple of subtle, though significant, influences. Eli Whitney, the guy who invented the cotton gin, helped cement cotton as a major cash crop, which drove even further demand for slaves. He, infamously, made no money off the development, as it was a simple and easily copied machine. But cotton helped drive the economic growth of the South. Frustrated, he eventually abandoned efforts to profit off it and went into the industrial world, where he was a small contributor to the development of higher precision machining and design, particularly for firearms. This in turn helped drive the growth of industry in the North, which was a major factor in giving the North the might and materiel to defeat the South. Eli Whitney inadvertently helped start and end the Civil War decades before it happened. What time traveler was giving that guy advice and pulling strings around him? The American Civil War's first real battle was at Bull Run on land belonging to a Mr. McLean. After that he said, "Screw this. I'ma move to the country and avoid this war." He moved to Appomattox Courthouse, VA, where Lee surrendered to Grant, in the McLean's living room. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Somebody throws a grenade at his car, and it blows up behind him. That's the first incident of time travel, stopping the assassination. Later, as he goes back, the driver realizes that he's on the same route where the grenade was thrown, and they try to turn around. The whole procession of cars stalls, and a guy who just happened to be sitting there goes over and shoots him. That's a second time traveler, fixing what the first had done. Since the whole thing lit off World War I and led to the rise of Hitler and then World War II. I kind of wonder what Ferdinand would have started if he hadn't been killed. It must have been pretty bad for them to send a second time traveler to put Nazi Germany back into the timeline. Tesla's AC polyphase system. 1 minute, we're in the Stone Age of electrical distribution, and the next, Buffalo, NY, is being powered by the alternating current being generated at Niagara Falls by Tesla's Genius system. During the War of 1812, seems like a time traveler with weather control capabilities started a freak tornado that effectively ended the British occupation of Washington. More British soldiers were killed by the tornado's flying debris than by the guns of the American resistance. There have been at least 40 attempts to kill Hitler after he had risen to power. Sometimes they failed because the assailant couldn't get close enough. At least that's what they said afterwards. But a lot of them failed because of reasons that seem plausible if it happens once but begin to smell fishy when you look at all of them. Elser's bomb went off as planned, but Hitler, who loved to hold speeches, had finished early that day. Trescow's bomb failed because at first he, as a high-ranking officer of the Wehrmacht, couldn't get his hands on anything that goes boom for months. And when he finally had some, the bomb didn't explode. Talk about German efficiency. Stauffenberg could have just shot the bastard. His attempt was part of a general upheaval after all. So his chances to survive that day would have been not that bad. But he planted a bomb because that went so well the last times. And so on. We will never know why, but somebody believed or even knew that a premature death of Hitler would have been even worse for the world than what we got. Or it was a wereaboo who wanted to see a tiger too. Who knows? Edit. I'm a bit surprised by the number of people who are trying to explain to me that I'm wrong. Like, dudes. I'm open for the idea that time traveling might not be real. Yet. I am almost certain Gemistus Pletho, 1355 to 1454, was a time traveler. Never heard of the man? Hear me out. He lived in the last decades of the dying Byzantine Empire, besieged by the rising Turks and the merchants of Venice alike. In a time when most clung to the Bible, he advocated for a return to the pagan gods of antiquity, Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, etc. While he believed that monks were wasting everyone's time, he was an important emissary to Italy to end the centuries-long schism between Orthodox and Catholic Christians. While he was there, he kick-started the Renaissance by reintroducing Plato to the West, who had been virtually unknown for a millennium, and convinced Cosimo de' Medici to found the Platonic Academy. He also tried to introduce reforms that would have transformed Byzantium, which still held onto the claim to be the sole heir of the Roman Empire, into a Greek nation-state. He proposed a new constitution of strongly centralized monarchy advised by a small body of middle-class educated men. The army must be composed only of professional native Greek soldiers, who would be supported by the taxpayers, or helots, who would be exempt from military service. Land was to be publicly owned, and a third of all produce given to the state fund. Incentives would be given for cultivating virgin land. Trade would be regulated and the use of coinage limited. Barter instead being encouraged. Locally available products would be supported over imports. Mutilation as a punishment would be abolished, and chain gangs introduced. Source: Wikipedia. His biography reads like a 21th century person getting thrown into the chaotic 15th century and trying to somehow introduce modernity. That he was ignored by the emperor and largely failed supports my long-held belief that most of us would be pretty useless political advisors if we were to time travel. If the time traveler can control weather, the divine wind that stopped the Mongol invasion of Japan, I'd say the Battle of Midway, the major turning point in the naval war in the Pacific. The battle destroyed the single most powerful naval strike force in history and shifted the balance of power to the U.S. The actual course of events during the Battle of Midway was a series of near misses for the U.S. until, conveniently, two separate airstrike forces arrived at the same time to decimate 3 out of 4 Japanese aircraft carriers. Absolutely amazing providence. Stanislav Petrov was a Soviet lieutenant known as the man who saved the world. Tensions were riding between the Soviet Union and the United States. So on the 26th of September in 1983, he was on duty for a nuclear early warning system. The system detected multiple missiles launched by the United States, but Petrov broke protocol, following his instincts by choosing not to report the danger to his higher-ups. The missiles turned out to be a false alarm, as he had thought, and, as Petrov's title suggests, he very well may have saved the world that day. Saving the world just off of a hunch definitely seems like something a time traveler might do. Seuss. Edit. Changed the 16th to the 26th. Isaac Brock's almost single-handed defense of Upper Canada from the U.S. invasion in the War of 1812. You have a garrison of a few hundred British soldiers. The ones not good enough for the Napoleonic War. Withdraw to Halifax and try to hold the Maritimes. Fuck that. Okay, natives. We don't like each other very much, but we're agreed the Americans are worse, right? Let's fight together. Hey farmers. You fled the revolution. They're coming to get you. Here's some guns, let's fight back. Forms an army in a matter of weeks out of nothing. Very well, Brock. You're outnumbered 3-1 on any given front and 10-1 in total. And you have to conquer Fort Detroit, which is entrenched, otherwise your SW flank will be open to counterattack. I'll write them a letter about how the natives with me will kill them horribly if the fort falls. And proceeds to march in a circle all night around the fort to build a sense of a larger force. And let the fear settle in. Fort Detroit surrenders without a shot. Okay, nice try, Brock. But now Niagara is about to be invaded and you're 500 kilometers away. Shit. I better canoe up Lake Erie really fucking fast. And he fucking does it. Too late, Brock. They've crossed the river at the northern end and they have the high ground. Fuck that. Follow me, boys. Charges up the hill at the head of the column and rallies his untrained militia to force them off the ledge. He dies to a goddamn cannonball blast straight to the chest. But the invasion is halted. Canada doesn't exist today if not for a balls-to-the-walls British general in 1812 who in the span of 3 months single-handedly raises an army, defends 750 kilometers plus of warfront, and cements 2 victories over forces that outnumbered him 3-1 to 5-1. I remember this comment about a bumbling time traveler trying to kill Adolphe Sax, inventor of the saxophone, because they hate their sax lessons, and I can totally see it because of how many things that almost killed him. Not many people know this, but one of the lookouts on the Titanic accidentally left his binoculars behind before the voyage. And some theorize that could be the reason he couldn't have seen the iceberg in time. A time traveler 100% could have sabotaged the binoculars somehow. The false alarm that almost turned the Cold War from a sleeping volcano into the eruption of Mr. Helena. This event could easily have resulted in the highest casualties in the shortest time period in human history. Actually, forget human history. The greatest mass death since the extinction of the dinosaurs. One man was at the helm making that decision. And it seems like one of the few points in human history where by some slim sliver of luck or fate, a great disaster was averted. Time travel vibes like whoa.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.